Okay, this is going to be a very interesting video because what we're going to attempt to do is demonstrate modeling fraction division. So I want to tackle one that's fairly straightforward, and then if we have time we'll go to one that's a little more complicated. So if we look at the fraction operation, 1/4 divided by um, 2/3. So there are a lot of different ways to model that, but one of the most important things that we want to get out of the model is the question is really asking is how, how many 2/3 groups or pieces are in 1/4. So what I'm going to make real sure is that my model shows that very same thing. So I'm going to do a couple things here and see if I can draw some shapes that actually will help us see that. So the first thing that we want to do from our model is to actually demonstrate or model 1/4. And so to do that, I've drawn a box that is going to serve as my 1, and now I want to draw some lines that will divide that into fourths. So, and due to the nature of the product that I'm working on, drawing straight lines is going to be a little complicated. We'll just work through it. So if each one of these is a fourth, so what I have here is 1/4. And if I were going to do some kind of shading to represent that, which I'm going to alter in a minute, then let's undo that little bit of erasure and get the right tool there. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight my 1/4 as best I can, and we'll see visually. So there's my 1/4. And now my question is, how many 2/3 are in 1/4? Now this is where it gets tricky, so you're going to have to follow me. So what we want to do is to take our whole and now divide it into, well, in this case, thirds, and then we're going to identify 2/3. So let's go ahead and do the very best we can with thirds, and so not too bad. So we want to know how many 2/3. So let's be more clear about what the 2/3 we're talking about. We're actually talking about, let's see, the space here. That big block there is my 2/3. So my question now is asking, how many 2/3 are in 1/4? Well, I've identified the 2/3 portion, and this yellow here is a little bit outside the boundary. I'm going to see if I can just reallocate that, so to speak. So I'm moving this essentially to here because all this yellow represents 1/4. Okay? So now the question is, how many 2/3 are in 1/4? And I'm hoping that what you're looking at now is you're saying, well, it's less than 1. This whole thing is 2/3, and this little bitty portion here represented by these 3, and I'm going to go ahead and put a big X here so that we kind of realize that that's no longer shaded. The yellow represents 1/4. There's way more 2/3 than there is yellow, so I know my answer is going to be less than 1. But let's just focus right now on the 2/3 portion. So I'm going to do my best to give us something to draw our attention to. So that is my 2/3. That's 2/3 of the whole that I was working from. And so how much of that is in 1/4? Well, I've got my 2/3 divided into 8 equal sections. So I'm going to make so out of 8, and that's not the best language to use, but what portion, how many eighths of 2/3 are in there? 1, 2, 3. So what that is telling me is that how many 2/3 are in 1/4? Well, there's 3/8. Watch this. Of 2/3 and 1/4. So there's 3/8 of 2/3 and 1/4. In fact, there's not just less than 1, there's less than a half of 2/3. I hope that helps see a little bit of how we can model any type of fraction division. Doesn't matter whether the denominators are compliant, so to speak, or not. And it helps us see that, well, in this case, there's way less than a half of 2/3. You can look at this visually and go, wow, that's 2/3. The yellow represents 1/4. Oh, yeah, it's less than a half. In fact, it is 3/8. So if I were kind of looking at this, I would go, so 1/4 divided by 2/3 is equal to 3/8. What we want to do is enough of these so that we can kind of begin to see some patterns, develop our own sense of algorithm, but more importantly, our sense of how much and what are we talking about when we say the answer is 3/8. Because it's 3/8 of 2/3 is actually in 1/4. I just had a little brainstorm here and realized that if we do the reverse of this to check our work, like I encourage people to do, then that would mean that 3/8 times 2/3 should be equal to 1/4. And since we've already done fraction multiplication, we know that 2/3 times 3/8, that would be equal to 2 times 3, that would be 6. And 3 times 8, 24. And lo and behold, that will simplify to 1/4. So indeed, I could have assurance that my answer is correct. So I hope this helps. We'll do some more on this and continue to master the art of dividing by fractions.